I've asked Charlie to come up and share just a powerful story of God's amazing intervention in his life in this time during recent years. So go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Good morning, church.
Good morning.
And I want to thank first my family and for my small group for coming here, and of course our church family, like we've been hearing about a lot. So I'm going to share about a tragedy. I'm going to try to make it through this. It's a bit difficult, but about 2 years ago, my parents were in a horrible car accident. They were, and you can see the slide up here about my dad. They were on their way home from a small group from their church. They were actually praying about a new minister coming in. They were sitting at a red light up in New Jersey, and a tractor trailer hit them at 55 miles an hour. Yeah, I was surprised too. They were driven into the car in front of them, and my dad, you wouldn't know by looking at me, but he was 6'5". He was killed instantly. And my mom was severely injured. I'll talk to you in a few minutes about her injuries. But I woke up on a Friday morning, that was Thursday, March 20th. I woke up on a Friday morning to some voicemails, and I was getting ready and listening, and I was like, wait a minute, am I dreaming? Because the first one was from the doctor in the ER saying, there's been an accident, your mom's here. And then the second one was the caseworker saying, we understand you're on your way up. And of course, this is the first I've heard of it. And what's amazing about this is I knew instantly that my dad was gone, because he would always have been the one to call me and say, hey, mom's in the hospital, you know, she was badly hurt. But through all that strife, I felt a quick sense of peace. Romans 8:28 kind of instantly came to my head that, you know, God works all things for good for his people. And I felt moved, and it's hard to describe. It has to be the Holy Spirit if you have Jesus in your heart and the Holy Spirit. I felt moved to think about forgiveness and let that just work in my heart. The strange thing about this, Mark, and you always hear about how the Lord works wonderful things, and he knits together a big novel throughout our lives. In October of 2013, I had been up, my mom had had some surgery on her back, and I had met some great surgeons at the Hospital for Special Surgery in New York. I'll tie that back in just a minute, but we also went to the Matthew West concert. I think it's the GTS Fest. And for those of you who are familiar with his song Forgiveness, it's about a mother who forgives a drunk driver who killed her son, or her daughter, sorry, and actually goes to his trial and his probation hearing and moves the judge to forgive him. So a little bit about about Dad. Dad was an amazing influence in my life, my best friend growing up. You can see some pictures up there. He was a highly decorated Vietnam veteran. There's actually a chapter in a book written about him, how he saved a whole crew of a downed helicopter. But he really loved the Lord. You can see some pictures up there about him and Mom going to Honduras and traveling and being missionaries. That famous kiss of them at the end of a charity that he started. For those of you who know the Gallup organization, my parents are really good friends with George and Kenny Gallup, and he rose to a challenge and organized a bike tour to help people who are needy and hungry in the central New Jersey area. This year was the 12th year, and it's raised over $800,000, and it's just people riding bikes and raising money, and 100% of the proceeds go to the local charities. So awesome story there. About Mom, so just to give you an understanding of the devastation, not only was Dad killed instantly from a crush injury, which ironically makes you think about when Jesus was crushed for our iniquities, and you don't really understand that until you hear about your own father being crushed. But Mom had 3 broken vertebrae, a broken left cheek, a shattered left ankle, and multiple broken ribs. When I got to the hospital in New Jersey, Katie and I didn't think that she was going to make it. It wasn't up until a couple days into it that we realized that she would. And the grace of God was there too, because Mom does not remember the first 3 weeks after the accident, and that, you can imagine, they had to hoist her up out of her bed to move her over to a chair, and just devastating things. But the power of God was there moving throughout the whole thing. We didn't really like the medical advice we were getting in Trenton. And like I mentioned, she had had that surgery in New York before. I called their spinal surgeon. I sent her x-rays up there. He said, get her up here. Hospital for Special Surgery is not a trauma hospital. People go there for orthopedic surgery. But they were able to arrange for the Cornell Weill Cornell Medical Center right next door, which is one of the number one or in the top in New York City, to bring physicians over to take care of her. Her surgery went perfect. They fused her spine. And then now Katie and I are thinking, well, how do we get me back down here? Because it had been 4 or 5 weeks at this point. And again, we just went to prayer. Most of you or all of you were praying for us. We use that Caring Bridge website a lot, and just the power of prayer kept coming in there. We faced a huge challenge of getting her down here in an ambulance for someone who wasn't really able to be moved around, and got her into rehab in Arlington, and then out here in the Burke rehab near us. So it was great to be able to be home just in time for Easter, I think, is when we got here. The last thing I would say, so let's move to Mr. Fisher, the man who caused all this, which I think is the most important thing about this, is forgiveness and what it does for you in your heart, and really frees you up to focus on things. And when I walk Sydney up every Sunday, there's Ephesians 4:32 is up there on the wall, and it says, "Be kind and compassionate, forgiving others just as the Lord has forgiven you." And I can't tell you, Mark, what happened, but I can tell you that the Holy Spirit moved so much in me to forgive him. It freed us up so that I could focus on mom and family and not be filled with hate. And actually, when I went to the sentencing hearing and mom and I read our victim statements, we really tried to make that a testimony about what it is to be a Christian in this world and to honor the Lord. And both of us talked about forgiving. And I even addressed him and said at the very end, I read a long letter about, I actually wrote it to my dad, so I didn't make it what's the impact on me. I talked to my dad about what he's missing and what he will miss with our kids growing up. But at the very end, I turned to him and I said, Mr. Fisher, I'm sure you think I hate you. I don't actually pray for you. And the best thing, hallelujah, is that made not only the papers, but it was on one, if not two radio stations up there, the great story about how Christians can love one another and love people, forgive people. And now I'm moved, and my prayer not only is for mom to get better, but I'm actually moved to write him a letter, Mr. Fisher a letter, and potentially even go visit him in prison, which is crazy, because I want him to know the peace that I have in my heart and the peace that mom has. And you can even ask Katie, it was crazy. I almost, at the sentencing hearing, wanted to stand up and be like, actually, I don't want him to go to prison. But I think when you look at the Bible, and Lon has talked about this in some of his sermons, there's a difference between forgiving as a Christian so that that person does not owe you anything, just like we couldn't earn our way into heaven. We couldn't earn the Lord's forgiveness. It was a free gift. There's a difference between that and justice, which is what our civilization or our society does to keep us whole. Yeah.
Charlie, thank you so much for sharing.